Welcome trainers to the series where we update the type chart and edit all 18 types with my own changes as well as your own input. From the interactions they have with other types, certain battle effects associated with the type, and any alterations we can make to existing information regarding the type. Good old reliable. The ground type should be on everyone's radar when team building, either to include on their own team or to anticipate from the opposing team. I really like this type just for Earthquake and Earth Power alone, but other standout qualities include bait and electric moves for a safe switch, or to counter really common types like Fire, Steel and Rock. As for the type's strengths and weaknesses, I'd say it's a pretty solid type. It has great offensive prowess, hitting 5 types of super effective damage, a ton of neutral hits making it a type you can't always safely switch into. This is especially true considering only grass and bug resist ground moves, so you only really need to worry about flying types, levitators and the occasional air balloon. For all that ridiculous super effective and neutral damage, these drawbacks are a joke, especially when you realise ground types come packing rock coverage with Rock Slide or the risky Stone Edge, which takes care of any bug or flying types. As for defence, well, just like Rock, it's weak to water and grass, which is a nuisance when running a Sandstorm team, but also gets a cheeky weakness to ice too. Again though, with rock coverage, ice isn't too big of an issue. For resistances, you get the benefit of reduced damage from rock and poison, which is decent, but the best quality by far is an immunity to electric. If called correctly, you can pivot in and out when predicting electric type moves, and seriously shift momentum in your favour. It's also so satisfying to have ground paired with water and flying Pokemon like Gastrodon and Gliscor, who instantly become defensive walls, incapable of receiving any electrical damage. Moreover, look at Swampert and Landorus. As long as you look out for grass and ice respectively, you have 2 offensive ground types with incredible bulk. Let's go over the changes I've already made in my previous videos. If you've been keeping up, then you're a real one, but if this is your entry video into the series, I'd advise checking these out and coming back. If Poof can return, then so can you. Anyway, offensively, ground will still be super effective to electric, and no changes have been made to poison and steel. Electricity gets grounded and shut down, sand can soak up poisonous liquids, while earthquakes destroy buildings and rip apart ores underground. However, let's drop the super effective interaction between fire and rock. I don't want rock and ground to be too similar, so rock can stay super effective to fire, while ground won't be. Sand does put out fire, but what is sand then rock particles in its smallest size? As for rock, well, like I mentioned in my update in the rock types video, the ground typing does need a few changes, and rock just needed to be a little bit more durable. On the other hand, grass will remain unchanged defensively, but like I mentioned in my update in the flying types video, ground will now be able to deal resisted damage to flying. Just because you fly doesn't mean moves like Boomerang, Drill Run and Mud Bomb do nothing upon impact. Pokemon will simply have to rely on Levitate, Air Balloon and Magnet Rides to avoid ground damage completely. Also, Bug's resistance is going to swap over to Ghost. Bugs should still be able to take neutral damage from the earth and mud, surely. Meanwhile, ghosts can phase through physical material like the ground. They tend to be revered for their levitating capabilities, rest in peace Gengar. And they can rise out the earth like it were nothing, not feeling a thing. So logically, if they were hit by an earthquake or earth power, I feel it shouldn't affect them much, so I'll settle for resisted damage. Finally, is both a nerf and a buff. How you take this change will determine how you perceive the fate of the ground type. I'm going to make ground resist itself. Oh boy, a mud monster being hit by mud. Oh boy, a dirt monster being hit by dirt. Oh boy, a sand monster being hit by sand. You get my point. As for its weaknesses, here are where things really shake up. I'm dropping weaknesses to water and ice. Water would just create mud, if anything, and certain biomes like swamps and deserts actually thrive off water being present. Ice shouldn't be that affected to ground either. Parts of the planet are covered in ice, and the Earth's core cancels out any ice trying to penetrate its surface. I mentioned more in the ice video, so if you've seen that, I won't bore you with another explanation. I know it all sounds too true now, grass being the only super effective move to ground, but I can't in good faith leave it all at that. There are more logical interactions that to me make a lot more sense than a little water or ice having ground buckle harder than, well, buckle. First of all, quickly, flying will be super effective to ground. If flying is going to lose its one kryptonite to ground, then at least give it a new advantage over ground. It does have the high ground after all, so let's collectively say burb and move on. Have you said burb yet? No, of course not. You're trying to watch a simple video to pass the time, and being prompted to speak to your screen is something you haven't done since you were young. We're in an age now where we waste our time watching videos about absolute nonsense, and we're just fine with it. Seriously, right now I'm just rambling about nothing to do with the content you want to consume, and I guarantee you're still wanting to watch because you know I'll bounce back to the actual video. A guide discussing a Pokemon type is the standard for where our free time goes. You might just have it on as background noise while on the toilet, but to me, I really appreciate you taking the time to check out the channel, so seriously, thank you for sticking around for all this nonsense. It means the world to me, and it doesn't go unnoticed. Anyway, can we please make Ghost super effective to ground? Now I know Ghost is already busted, I'll be getting to that in its own video. However, like I mentioned earlier, Ghosts can quite literally phase in and out on command. They go through things more than that one family from We're Going on a Bear Hunt for crying out loud. Let's finally discuss Steel. Ground is super effective to steel, which is always fun, but how about we make it work the other way round, so steel is super effective to ground? I love it when Pokemon like Tyranitar and Metagross clash with their dual typings, but it never happens with monotypings. We've never had an interaction where two different types are super effective to each other. The closest thing we've had is Dragon vs Dragon and Ghost vs Ghost. I mentioned earlier that earthquakes destroy steel structures and provide pressure to ores within the earth, but on the other hand, steel tools like drills and pickaxes tear away at the earth, and mankind is destroying the earth with the abundance of metal advancements we have. Who knows what the future holds? Now, while I'm fairly satisfied with the amazing moves that come from ground, and even certain secondary effects, I think we'll branch out from what Spidermark86 has said. He points out how sandstorms buff rock types on the special defensive side, but there's nothing for ground types. He's got a point. Why does rock get the benefit from sandstorm when it's clearly made for the ground type? There are more active ground types setting up sandstorms as opposed to rock types, and between Sandrush, Sandforce and Sandveil, it's clear the ground typing goes hand in hand with this weather condition. So let's do that then. Just like with rock types, Sandstorm will increase the special defense of a ground type. Check out all the Garchomp running Rampage in the meta game now. However, I also want to take it a step further. When I think of the ground type, I think of them being grounded, rooted to the floor and almost as if they're a part of the battlefield itself. Let's implement that mindset and create an actual terrain. Terrains were introduced in Gen 6, and to this day no new ones have been introduced. No other type is more fitting for one than the ground type, as a terrain is literally the ground conditions and features. Let's make a sandy terrain. It'll cover the battlefield in a sand-like energy to boost the defense of a ground type, since we've already increased special defense with Sandstorm. Just like the other terrains, the sandy terrain will have a little bonus effect too. No Pokemon can receive critical hits while on the terrain. It will serve a niche role with certain Pokemon relying on critical hits for damage, and it just allows for slowing down a game, which I'm sure is what the sluggish ground types would want to achieve, besides maybe Dugtrio. At least behind Terrain and Sandstorm, it can actually see more viability than just arena trapping a Pokemon. So that's all I have for the ground type. Buffs and nerfs everywhere, and definitely the one I've updated the most, hence the length of the video. Here's how the chart is looking now, for anyone wanting a summary of the video, instead of me rambling on for too long. I'd definitely recommend subscribing, not just for me, but for you to see how the remainder of the series goes. Also make sure to leave any of your thoughts down in the comments. I've really enjoyed going over each of your views, and hope to continue talking to new people I'm yet to discover. Until next time, however, make sure to train hard and team build to the best of your ability, and I'll see you guys in the next video.